Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I welcome Councillor Wood putting forward this amendment, and as so many things that I think we'll discuss today, they ultimately become ones about the individual value judgment that we want to pose. So on the one hand, we've got this view that somehow someone living in $1 million house today is probably wealthy and will have an income that will reflect that. But the bottom line, particularly in the isthmus, is that for people who have owned their homes for a long period of time, and they are generally the elderly, and they are generally the ones that are the glue in our communities, that do the volunteer work and everything else, they have been the ones that have been really hit hard. And I think the decision that we took, that we weren't going to provide a rates cap, and I know that that was something that was advocated by Councillor Crum and myself, this might actually help to take some of the pain out of the situations that so many older constituents have brought to me, and the ones who are suffering the most in terms of the way that real estate just continues to go up in price. Now, if I look at the numbers, if you look at Albert Eden, 60% wish to keep the same or increase, and of those who wish an increase, 650 is the most preferred option. What Councillor Wood has done is said, look, that 650 is just way too high. 500 is a reasonable judgment in terms of what might be fair. This is the only tool that we actually have in the toolkit, and without wishing to be disrespectful to a member for the Independent Murray Statutory Board, it doesn't unpick the whole budget. You know, where we see it and where the value judgment that is finally made by members of this chamber, it doesn't change the net value of rates coming in. It's just how it's actually the methodology in terms of that collection. So I would urge members to support this. As we go forward, it is getting more and more difficult for those who actually don't want to move from their homes. And we have done too little, in my opinion, to really come to grips with policies around supporting people remaining in their homes. I know that the CEO will say, oh, rating deferral, or all of these other sorts of things. I think it's inadequate, and I know that there are a lot of people who are not on big incomes that are really, really struggling with this, and I hope that this can be supported today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wood and Councillor Stewart, for putting this up. I think it's a fairly moderate and pragmatic thing to do. Every year we hear the same arguments being put forward for a very low UAGC, and that is it's a reflection of people's ability to pay. That's just not true. We don't have that information. We know nothing about people's ability to pay their rates. We don't hold that information. The only thing we know about them is what the value of their home is. That's all we know. We don't know anything else. And in fact, you could have an elderly couple living on a fixed income on a house that they bought 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when their income was at their highest, and they bought a nice property, and over the years it's escalated in value, and it doesn't take much now in Auckland to have $1 million property. I think everybody's got $1 million property these days. So this elderly couple who worked hard, lived in this property, made a contribution to their community, are being told that their ability to pay is more than the ability of the couple who live down the road, who live on a $700,000 house and have two incomes. That's what we're saying, in fact. And that's just not true. So I welcome this. I see this as an opportunity to give a slight amount of rates relief, and I take on board what Councillor Watson has said. It's only a small amount. But Councillor Watson, the people who are getting a small amount of rates relief have paid the burden of the rates forever. They do deserve a small, even if it is only $20 a year or $8 a year, it is still a contribution that, or a recognition of this body that they have made that contribution to their community, and they have paid their fair share. And all we're asking for is that they pay a little less, and it's not much, $500. So thank you, Councillor Wood. Thank you, Councillor Stewart, for this moderate and pragmatic UAGC number that you've put forward. And I will certainly be supporting it.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Can we put the vote?
No, I want to speak.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Well, point of order, Madam Chair. I think what you put there was a closure motion.
Well,
And if that's a closure motion, then you need to take a vote on it.
Good idea.
Who seconded the closure motion?
I think she was more musing.
I did look around and I couldn't see any hands up, and I thought
Well,
we're
Madam
probably
Chair,
going to have
Madam
this
Chair,
debate.
The voting is underway, Madam
Going
Chair.
to have this vote 3 times, but hopefully not the debate 3 times. Okay. No, it's all right. Go on, Councillor Clow.
I have no doubt that many of the people that are going to vote for this are going to also vote for the status quo on the interim transport levy. Because as Councillor Watson has just brought up and reminded you, the transport levy is a regressive flat tax. In effect, it's actually, we increased the UAGC by stealth last year for residents to the tune of $114. As JT pointed out, it's regressive. It hurts certain bodies more than others. In the feedback, the consultation feedback, and we should be listening. I don't know why we do it if we don't listen to the local boards and we don't listen to the public, because it's just a wasted exercise, to be quite honest, if we do all this stuff and we get all this majority feedback and then we just ignore it because they're local boards and because they're the public and not many of them put it, so therefore it's meaningless. It's kind of the impression I get from some people around the table. So let's be quite clear that it was 14 were for, leaving it as it is. 5 local boards were against and 2 didn't comment. Just remind you of the LTP feedback last year, which I have here. 67%, which included 59 who wanted no change, 8 were unsure, 67% versus 33% wanted to change it, to increase it. It was 67-33, substantial raise. The strugglers who will get hit by any raise like this, or any, just even the, and we'll move on to the transport levy later, by their status quo that on the transport levy, are low income earners, minimum wage earners, renters, the Maori community, the Pacifica community. Those are the ones who are going to get hit most by any change with this. And let's face it, we need, and that doesn't mean they're in the same area, but we need blue-collar workers in this city. This city is growing and booming. That's why, to be quite honest, we're getting a shortage of them. That's why the hospitality business in Auckland, you only need to go to a restaurant, and they are mostly people from overseas because we don't have enough people. We haven't got enough people coming into the hospital, so there's a lot of Filipino migrants. Who the heck is them working on the dairy farms now? Filipinos. We're struggling to actually keep and retain blue-collar workers, and it's really hard in Auckland because of the crazy house prices and the rents. And that's who we should be thinking about, because we need workers. And I think it's really great that Councillor Cracks just was talking about this would only be minor rates relief and that, so I'd like to think you'd be considering my proposal on the interim transport levy when it comes up, because you can save your ratepayers 1.1%. You've got it in front of you, the bits of paper, 1.1%. That's quite a lot. So instead of paying 2.6, they will pay 1.5. So please remember, that is a bit more substantial than just a little amount. So thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other debates on this, I will put it by division, I presume.
Yes, thank you.
Mike has many division sheets in front of him. Thank you.
Your Worship,
No.
Councillor Nye,
No.
Councillor Brewer,
For.
Councillor Casey,
No.
Councillor Cashmore,
No.
Councillor Clow,
No.
Councillor Cooper,
No.
Councillor Darby,
For.
Councillor Filipaina,
Against.
Councillor Fletcher,
For.
Deputy Mayor Hulse,
No.
Councillor Crum,
For.
Councillor Lee,
No.
Councillor Penrose,
No.
Councillor Quacks,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Member Taipari,
No.
Member Tamahiri,
No.
Councillor Sir John Walker,
No.
Councillor Wayne Walker,
No.
Councillor Watson,
No.
Councillor Wood,
Yes.
Chair Webster,
No.
It's close, George.
So that was lost 716. We will move to the next amendment, which is to put the UAGC at 450, and this moved by Councillor Brewer, seconded by Councillor Crum.
Madam Chair,
Councillor
can I
Brewer.
speak to it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I think I've found the sweet spot here, and I've come in a very moderate approach. I think in our papers, Madam Chair, we see that where we thought 90%, as is in legislation, 30% that is in legislation, was $900. I think it's actually up to $980 now, is it, for the UAGC? And so, potential of the UAGC. And so 450 is certainly closer to that midpoint than the 394. And I suppose, for me, the Mayor has talked about an equity lever, and this at 450 is not going to change much at all, but it's going to send a strong signal out there to those that other speakers have articulated very well this morning, that have shouldered the increases over the last 5 years. And Mr Mayor, they are the same people, largely in same communities, that turned up to the Royal Commission and supported amalgamation. And they have been hit the hardest. And those, arguably, that marched down Queen Street and other places haven't been hit as hard as the supporters of amalgamation, who have yet to see the real economic benefit that they were promised. And so, for me, the timing is right. Last year, it was the UAGCT. It was the Uniform Annual General Charge for Transport. And I'm pleased that you took the call to add it to your LTP proposal, that it would be debated this year. And so I believe its time has come. It's a city tax, and it's a slight increase of a city tax that won't have much impact for most. In fact, those on 750,000 CVs will save $4 per annum. And now that we see from RE, INZ and Quotable Value and others, median house prices at $800, $900, $1 million, there's a lot of Aucklanders sitting on 750,000 CVs. Middle Aucklanders, not the well-off that it has been articulated today, but middle Aucklanders will get a small saving. Those that find themselves in a $500,000 house, CV, it will cost 28 cents per week. It will add $15 to their rates. Those in $1 million house, those to $1 million house, they will save, with a CV, they will save $25. So the movements are not that pronounced, Mr Mayor, but I certainly think it, more importantly, it sends a signal, and it actually adds even more balance to your budget that a lot of people have been calling upon. I note that some have pointed to the numbers of local boards that have asked for it to be retained or reduced. The biggest quantity of the biggest number section of those that wanting to keep it higher is actually, the biggest number is 33%. 32% want to keep it at 397, 27 lower than 397, but 33% wanted it in our survey results, wanted it to be higher, and I believe this is probably a record result for asking people if they want to increase the UAGC. People understood it more than previous years, and 33% is a big section of the community. And when you look at the local boards that have advocated for this, Devonport Takapuna, Councillor Wood, Hibiscus and Bays, Howick, Oraki, Upper Harbour, and some have even wanted 650, but I certainly see 450 at the bottom end, and I commend this to you, Madam Chair, because I certainly believe its time has come. We all, despite our property values, all Aucklanders enjoy equal access to council's infrastructure, services and amenities, and this small increase in the uniform annual general charge will send a great signal out to the wider community, to Middle Auckland, that this council is listening to them, and after 5 years of some of them have had 50% compounding rate increases, there is a small, some small relief in sight this coming rates round. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor